About 20 years ago, Apple had released quite a popular product that had changed a lot of the music industry. No, it's not the iPhone. That changed the smartphone industry. I'm talking about the music industry. You guys have probably seen an iPod before, be it an iPod Classic, which my mom used to have, though it was the HP version. More on that in a few minutes. I have the iPod Nano as my first iPod, which I absolutely love. And then I got the iPod Touch right here as well, which I am surprised to this day. I mean, my iPod Touch is actually the 6th generation. They've currently updated it to be the 7th generation. Apple's still selling an iPod. They're no longer selling this one or any of the others. This is the only one they sell. Yet nobody's really... Why do we still have it? Because why is this the only one they sell? Why do they not sell any other iPods? Why does the iPod even matter at this point? You know what? Let's just stop asking questions and get into it. Okay, quick side tangent. It is really hard for me to play this intro over and over again because I actually created the next intro already. It is done, awaiting to be used. But the reason why we're not using it yet is because we have to wait for Alpha World, and oh wait, that's in October. So when it comes to why this thing still exists, you know what? Let's take it back to 20 years ago, since the first iPod was actually released in 2001, and it's 2021. So let's go back 20 years and see what led to the development of the iPod in the first place. So at the time, let's just say people were getting tired of having to wait for a song to play at the radio and say they wanted to hear it now, but couldn't really. So we had CDs. Except carrying a portable CD player was pretty cumbersome because, I mean, while the term compact disc means you're supposed to be able to store a lot of stuff on a small thing, the compact disc isn't exactly that tiny. We got the flash drive, which was starting to come in for a lot of MP3 players. I mean, we already had tiny hard drives, which was actually what the original iPod shipped with. Flash storage was just starting to become a thing, though the software used to navigate that type of storage, it all sucked. I mean, the closest I got to something decent was my original MP3 player, the Sony Walkman. I don't have that anymore. My sister uses that. Actually, she rarely uses that now that she also has an iPod Touch. But that was the closest thing to a decent MP3 player I could get other than an iPod. Why is that? Well, buttons were confusing, the interface was confusing, nothing was consistent. Even if it actually was very well and properly designed, you couldn't really fit that many songs on it in the first place. So a lot of the MP3 market, it was bad. It was so hard to listen to music because the ways to do it are so bad. In the car, well, you could use your CD player, but of course, CDs are cumbersome and big to carry around. You could try carrying your personal CD player, which doesn't really fit in your pocket very well. And then all the other tiny MP3 players, they all sucked. So yeah, the music industry had a huge problem. So Apple decided to come in first with iTunes to make purchasing music a whole lot better than buying CDs, ripping them to your computer, and then end up doing a whole bunch of things that is technically piracy. Yeah, it was just bad. The music industry was horrible before Apple stepped in. So Apple launched iTunes to fix that. Well, iTunes is only great for the Mac because it's a desktop app. You can't really put desktop applications on devices like the original iPod. So Apple developed the original iPod. And oh boy, I remember one funny story. The original mission was to make a tiny MP3 player, but was very functional and easy to use. It took a while for them to figure out how to make it compact because evidently the first time they tried to do it, Steve Jobs famously dumped that iPod into a tank of water and bubbles were appearing from it. So yeah, evidently Steve wanted it tinier as can be, like to the point where there is zero room for error. But despite how much of a pain it was to originally develop it, they finally got it. The first iPod, which came with your odd headphone jack. I believe it required a specific set of headphones in order to listen to it because it wasn't quite 3.5 millimeter. But also the charging port actually wasn't the 30-pin connector that you're probably thinking it was. No, it was actually a FireWire port. And what does that look like? Oh, hey, speaking of iPod, I got a camera right here. Here, let's show you what it actually looks like. This is the back of my iMac, and right there, that's about what a FireWire port looks like. The original iPod didn't have a camera though. The iPod turned out to be quite a huge success. Like, everyone, even the Apple haters or people who just don't know tech. Example, my grandmother, she even knows what an iPod is. Everyone knows what the iPod is. That's how big of a hit it was. After you make one successful product, well, you gotta continue. So, of course, they made many other variants of the iPod Classic as it then became known. But also they switched to some other types of iPods. Like, for example, I have the iPod Nano. They also had an iPod Mini once upon a time. We have the iPod Touch here. They also have an iPod Shuffle, which I don't have, but I have seen before. The other variant of the iPod Classic, the HP, believe it or not, Apple actually allowed HP to manufacture an iPod. I kid you not. It not only does it have the Apple logo, but my mom used to have an iPod. Not only did it have the Apple logo, but right at the bottom, it also had the HP logo. Were there other effects of the iPod? Well, yeah, it definitely changed the way we listen to music. Because now, that's what really got us kicked into, okay, we take our CDs, shove them in our Macs, sync them to iTunes. Once it's there, hey, we can now sync them to our iPods. We can now create playlists. We can also play each individual song on demand. Wow. Whoever dreamed of that after using so many CDs in the CD changer? It's also changed how we listen to music in our cars. We can now plug our iPods in via the 30-pin connector or the lightning port or or even your basic standard aux jack and play songs directly from your iPod versus inserting a CD or listening to the radio. In fact, I always plug in a device to listen to a podcast or my music into my car versus listening to the radio because if I'm being honest, the radio really doesn't play any more good music. But as products become quite successful, they also tend to die down at some point, as we are dealing with right now. What caused that? Biggest thing is the iPhone. 2007. I'm surprised that iPods were still popular in 2007, despite the launch of the iPhone. But what really instantly began the demise of the iPod, it's when they advertised this right before they even said the name iPhone. They wanted to create a device that is an iPod with multi-touch controls, a communications device like phone and text messages, and an internet communicator, basically web browser. It's the first thing that they said that would instantly start the demise of the iPod. A built-in iPod. The iPhone has a built-in iPod, essentially. So, why carry around a second individual iPod? It just doesn't make sense, especially, you know how we all listen to our music nowadays. We don't listen to music on our iPods anymore. I mean, some do, but not that many. We all listen to music on our phones. I listen to music on my phone, for crying out loud. And yet somehow I have two of these and yet I still use both of them, just not as much as I used to. But then we also got another thing that really began the demise of the iPods. I mean, even after the launch of the iPhone and numerous years of iPhone sales increasing, they still kept these around for quite a long time. In fact, I think they discontinued these in 2016, which I was lucky I was able to buy this then because I recall the summer after I bought this, they discontinued it. So what has caused, so these things may have stuck around so long, but what caused Apple to instantly kill off all the other iPods so soon, except for this one? They're still selling this one, but why aren't they selling all the other iPods? Because there's a new way we listen to our music. Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Google Play Music, YouTube Music. Everyone, except me, streams their music nowadays. And with all the other iPods The iPod Touch is the only iPod that is capable of connecting to Wi-Fi. This may have Bluetooth, but Bluetooth doesn't equal Wi-Fi. So that means you can't load Pandora or Spotify onto this thing. If you want Pandora or Spotify on an iPod, the iPod Touch is your only option. So because of that, nobody downloads their music anymore, and therefore nobody really needs to keep a separate device to keep your music downloaded anymore. Especially now that most people listen to music on their phones anyways. After the phone came out, yeah, the sales really started to drop. But once streaming became so popular and nobody needs a reason to keep storage for music, that just rules out the purpose for these things. And that is why, despite that the iPod is still being sold, this is the only one that they're selling. So why are they still holding on to this one? Because if we all listen to music on our phones, why keep this? Why even keep this one? Because this is essentially an iPhone without the phone app and cellular connectivity. Well, that's the reason why they're still keeping it. It's for those who want a device but probably aren't allowed to have access to a phone and or cellular connectivity. The kids! I got this as a Christmas present once upon a time. And why? Well, it's because I'm young. Didn't want me to have my own phone number and all that, so I used this. And then I got a phone, so yeah, I now have a phone number and all that, but before I got my phone, well, my parents didn't want me to have a device with phone capabilities, so they got this. It's a good first phone introduction thingamabobber for the youngsters who just aren't old enough to have a phone. My sister also has one. Why? Because she's young and is not old enough to have a phone, though she has a flip phone. This is pretty much being kept around for that younger generation to get to know iOS in, actually this is the same as the original iPhone SE form factor. So the 5s and the SE, yeah, this is the same form factor as that. It gives them a device to learn how to use iOS in a phone-like form factor, despite that it still has a home button. That seems to be the only reason why this is still around. But to be honest, once those kids grow up, they probably don't need this anymore. Like, I don't really need this anymore. Though, because I'm an Apple collector, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily getting rid of these, especially this. I'm not getting rid of this anytime soon since it's been discontinued. So that is why the iPod still exists. It's no longer for just listening to music anymore, because, I mean, you can play games on this as well, because this is a full-fledged iOS device. The reason why people still buy this is because it's been repurposed to fit the modern day. I mean, back in 2001, yes, it really helped because, I mean, music streaming wasn't a thing except if you listened to the radio in your car. This was how you listen to music because you had to download it. And if you wanted to keep it small, you got an iPod. Now that we listen to music via streaming, most kids are playing games anyways. They just adopted the iPod just to fit them much better. That is why they haven't discontinued it yet, because it still fits in a particular market. And until that market is just flat out gone, only then will Apple discontinue it. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Do me a favor, interact with the stuff below. My name is Alpha DeWolf. Random Alpha, signing out.